You guys seem to really enjoy the last video I made talking about the perfect CV/resume template for you to use to increase your chances of landing your next job role. But I thought I'd go one step deeper into the process and actually show you guys my CV that I use with this template. And I want to talk about how I think this CV template really aided me in being able to talk about my experience effectively, while also highlighting separate functions that hiring managers are looking for. I've currently been in my most recent role as a marketing manager for coming up 9 months now. And prior to the most recent role I currently have, I have received some really good job offers that have really sparked my interest from using this template, with 2 really good offers coming in the same week. Now let's hop straight into it with the education section. Now I'm coming from a perspective of someone who is a couple years out of university age, who has held quite a few different job roles in my preferred industry of marketing. And such as I don't actually hold a university degree, which means the bulk of my character building through a job application is done through work experience. So for me personally, the education section I think should be kept relatively small. I think even if you had a degree and if you had some other external qualifications worth mentioning on your CV, it is beneficial to make that section smaller. About a third of a page, definitely less than half of a page. Even if you have a degree, we are now jumped into the real world where recruiters are looking for a specialised individual who can come in and prove that they can do a job. And a university or college degree doesn't necessarily prove that. But what does prove that is relative work experience, talking about previous job roles and matching up responsibilities from your past work to the current job offering. And when hiring managers see that you match up work experience wise, you have much more opportunity to land that job role. And also we have to remember that this day and age, nearly everyone has a degree anyway. So almost the level playing field is to have a degree in the first place. So many of my peers I work with in my industry at the minute, at my current level but also below, hold a university degree. I don't. And I say to friends and people I know in real life, etc., I'm the perfect example of you don't have to go to university to make something of yourself. Because over the last few years, I feel like so many people have been pushed into university, even though they don't necessarily need to. Where that 3 or 4 years spent getting a degree could have been used to bulk up your work experience massively and actually climb through the ranks of a business. Obviously, if we're talking about trade school or some specialised work, if you want to work in anything to do in the medical industry, yes, you need the relevant education. That is very important. But something like marketing, something like sales, anything business studies related, you really don't need a degree to be a specialist in that area. But BTEC level 3 in IT is what I did at college, nothing crazy. I got equivalent A star, so go me, top student. The second piece of education I have is actually a long-standing piece of training that I did at my company called the Diploma in Integrated Marketing. I put this in my education section on my CV because it shows some specialisation. I didn't go to university for marketing. I don't have a diploma in marketing. I don't have any education that pertains to the current industry I work in. So having something, even if it is a 6-month, fairly high, it's still fairly high level, but nothing like a university degree or a 2-year college diploma or something. But definitely more intense and more higher standing than something on Skillshare or some online course. So I made the decision to put this diploma in my education section in my CV to prove solely that I have some specialised education in marketing. If I was to go 1v1 with an individual who did a degree in marketing, they would smash me out of the park for this education section, hands down. But again, in this template, I am prioritising work experience over education. Now, if we are talking to the guys that are maybe in their 2nd year or 3rd year of university, whichever is the year that you get internships, or university placements in companies like internships or apprenticeships or whatever, then this template is going to be looking a hell of a lot different for you, because you do have to talk about your education a lot more, because you might not necessarily have 3 or 4 years of specialised work experience. That is obviously where the switch would happen, but again, this is just a template. It's supposed to be tailor-made to you. So we move on to the meat and potatoes of the CV, the work experience section. Essentially, before 9 months ago, before I got a promotion to marketing manager, I only had sort of entry-level experience. Even the content manager role at this agency wasn't necessarily a senior leadership position, because I was still acting as executive level. But I would say that if you do have any managerial experience or senior leadership experience in general, it has to be your first most important piece of work experience that you show off in your CV. Because as soon as a hiring manager sees some sort of leadership capability or some sort of managerial ownership of projects, products, or people, then it's going to increase your stock massively, because a lot of people coming into the job market now don't have said managerial experience across different functions. And I think I communicated this very well by stating in the CV, owned the marketing department, which helped facilitate year-on-year commercial growth across membership, events and training arms of the business, while simultaneously developing brand strategy and help build notability within the industry. Now, if a hiring manager was so serious and looking into me, he or she would then go onto my personal portfolio to look at case studies of the work I've done within this time frame, and then mash the two together to see some tangible examples of what I'm speaking about. We move on to expanding the Alliance client base nationally through developing and executing demand gen campaigns, utilising paid media, organic content drives and in-person remote events. So the first bullet point, I always have some sort of ownership backed up by statistics. And my company currently is a very small marketing department, but I still head up the marketing department as the marketing manager, and I'm responsible for all output that comes out from the marketing department. And the second bullet point always talks about some specialist function that I hold in that job role. So this communicates to the hiring manager that I have experience with demand gen campaigns, I have experience with paid media, I have experience with, running in-person and remote events, which proves to the hiring manager that I know how to get a job done. And if we're talking about applying for smaller companies, maybe startups or agency environments, or they're going to really appreciate me talking about specialisms a lot more, simply because bulk of the applications they might get might just be from individuals with unrelated experience or unrelated education, where their character looks good, but they haven't said in their CV or proved in their CV that they know about specific functions that makes up a marketing role. If I was hiring for a junior creative role, for example, and I read through someone's CV and there was no mention of Photoshop, no mention of InDesign, no mention, of developing short form content for TikTok or Instagram or whatever, then that person isn't really filling me with confidence that he or she could actually take on the role and do the job that I'm asking them to do. And the third point I always like to use is just a miscellaneous point. It might be another specialism, or it might be some sort of development, a bit of a show off point. In my CV, I say managed and developed a junior marketing team while acting as line manager. Took lead in project management and oversaw all marketing output, drastically improving processes and quality of output across all marketing collateral. So again, it's proving qualities as a manager, it's proving qualities as a line manager, but also it's proving the capability to step back in my role and look at the bigger picture. Talking about improving processes and improving quality of marketing collateral that comes out of my department is something that a CEO or board member may look at on a CV and be like, okay, yeah, this is who we need in the company to actually drive positive change. And again, really, the marketing exec role, this content role, the brand and communications assistant role, all follow the same format. First bullet point, responsibility, accountability. Second bullet point, specialisms and results. Results could also be in the first bullet point, completely depends. Third bullet point is some development or show off. I don't know the answer to this point and whether it's relevant or not, but I still have sort of my store assistant role when I worked in retail when I was at university still on my CV. The role was just stacking shelves and being on the tills and working with the manager efficiently, etc. But I've been able to waffle about it and prop it up a little bit more than it was, which is an interesting topic but a bit of double speak in your CV, a bit of waffle, a bit of propping things up a tiny bit more, using some fancy language is most probably going to elevate your application and get you into the interview room with the hiring manager. We do not lie on CVs. We do not do any little white lie on CVs, because it's going to come to a technical interview and then you can't prove what you're talking about. It's just going to be awkward and a waste of everyone's time. But we can for sure waffle, and what waffling is an art. Waffling, I think, is a skill, because we're able to take something like a store assistant role in Aldi, in a retail environment where it is really just nothing special, but we're able to talk about our own development, what the job meant to us, how we were able to provide positive outcomes for the store to drive business growth. We can still talk about those things. But at this point at the bottom, developed and refined exceptional problem solving skills while dealing with customers and business needs. It's a very simple point to make, but it's such a broad, sort of run of the mill point to make. But in the course of an entire CV, and for a hiring manager to look through and to build a character based on you, stuff like this is important. The hiring manager being able to take a look at you and to build a character and to understand who you are, not as a worker but also as a person. If every third bullet point of every single job you had is something development related, then it's going to show that you care about your career growth, which means that you are going to want to drive positive results for the business to improve your own career trajectory. But yeah, that's the work experience section. As you can see, considerably longer than the education section, simply because I don't actually have all too many qualifications or education to myself, to my name. But what I do have is a boatload of work experience. So leveraging what you have in this CV is important. You know, if you have 2 degrees, or if you have a master's, or if you have, or if you are moving into an industry that really truly values education, like medicine related stuff, or like certain tech roles, etc., then yes, you are going to have to leverage the education section a lot more. But for me personally, working in marketing, it's a very fast-paced industry. I've only ever worked with startups. I've never worked in a company that has more than 20 employees. So I've always had the mentality of growth in my roles, because my growth is attributed to business growth as well, which means that my CV is going to reflect said growth by talking specifically about the functions and capabilities I have given to the organisation for positive results. Now, as we move on further from the work experience section, this is what I think so many people lack in their job applications. It's the function section. I talked about it in the past video I made talking about the CV template. Having a function section is really going to set you apart from other individuals applying for the same role, because it proves specialism, it proves career development, it proves character development. So for me personally, I have a leadership section because I'm obviously now targeting leadership roles more and more throughout my career. I have my first one currently now as marketing manager, but I hope to move on to marketing director. I hope to move on to, in 10, 15 years time to be a CMO, etc. These are things I aspire to be. So the function section in my CV should cater towards this anyway. And for me, it's leadership based. So in one of the agency environments I had, client brand growth, I managed 3 employees in creating digital media, built relationships, managed artist bookings, etc. This is all to do with ownership, all to do with leadership, all to do with people development. This very easily could be switched to coding or technical product development or something really specialist, because if you are applying to a certain job role that is specialist, having a section that proves your capability in your CV is going to set you apart a crazy amount from people that just have a generic job application with generic capabilities and generic problem solving points. And even though I said I don't have a degree, I still attended university. I dropped out after like a year and a half. It wasn't for me, but I still represented Bournemouth University and co-led a team in a global business development competition. So I'm still going to talk about that, because it proves even from a young age that I was taking on leadership roles and having fruitful situations come from that. And obviously this will develop over time. But let's say, for example, you are a creative, you want to move into a creative job role with aspirations to be a midweight creative and then moving on to creative director, etc. Having a section in your CV that dives really deep into your technical capability is going to make you a humongous standout to someone that could only briefly talk about it at previous job roles. And then off of that, you can link to your portfolio, which I don't recommend doing in the body of the CV, but my portfolio is up at the top. So if someone is reading that I have done said thing really well, they probably want proof of it, and I provide the proof all in my portfolio that I link at the top of my CV. But for me, because I'm not so specialist, I'm not a creative by heart. I don't specialize in like SEO or paid media. I am a very generalist marketer. I have personally picked a general skill to talk about, but it does relate to my projections because I want to be working my way through management in the future. But if you were an SEO expert looking to further your development in SEO, this whole section would just be about SEO and using certain terminology to back yourself up, etc., etc. The last section, very basic additional information. I talk about certain IT skills, what I'm proficient in, some other skills, but keywords I think are important to get into your CV somehow, especially if you're applying to bigger companies that unfortunately use automated systems to get you through round one, because you can't expect one hiring manager to look through 10,000 applications to a digital media manager at Apple or something like that. Obviously that's a whole separate conversation where you don't have to work for a big company to develop a good career and to earn good money, but to have keywords in I think is important. But yeah, that is my CV currently. Obviously it develops sort of every week. I'm always making tiny changes here and there. I'm always changing up the wording a little bit. I've always got different versions, but that sort of is the base that I'm running with at the minute. But yeah, any questions or any discussion points you guys wanted to make, please feel free to leave in the comments below. I always, try my best to reply to all comments. Subscribe to the channel. We're nearly at 100 subs actually, which is kind of mad. So yeah, subscribe to the channel. Let's push for that 100 subs. Really appreciative of that. Like the video if you enjoyed. Overall, hope you're having an awesome day. Stay safe. See you later.